Hi everybody, it's this air conditioner again. I wanted to share something that I noticed comparing this and the mini split next to it, which is actually a really cool thing that mini splits do that these probably can't benefit from. Well, they can't because it's so simple. Let me just start out by saying before I filmed the B-roll that I needed, I actually cleaned this. I took it apart and did a proper cleaning of the coil, which is really something that you should do periodically. And this really did need it. I think it was installed in 2019, and so I've never done it before. The inside was filled with leaves and stuff, so it needed a proper disassembly and cleaning. So I've never done that myself, so it was kind of a learning experience. And one of the things that I've learned is that at least these basic AC only units are made so cheaply. There's basically just a pan on the bottom. The compressor is sitting in that pan, and then the coil is just resting in that pan, and the side panels are the only structure that it has, and then the fan cowl is attached to the top structure. So when you take this thing apart, it's just amazing how like little these things are so cheap. I mean, are you surprised? This is it's just like build to the dollar everything we do. But anyway, so when I did the cleaning, it was filthy, and really I should have done it a long time ago. And now the coils are nice and clean, so this should be good for another couple years. But anyway, I have actually well, no, that's not true. This has been here since 2019, and then in that winter, that's when I installed this mini split. And I did this install myself, so there's lots of things that are not perfect with it, but hey, it's still running and nothing's ever gone wrong with it, other than the indoor blower motor is a little bit loud. It's been making that noise since like year 2, and also I see that fastener there is getting a little rusty. But anywho, so I want to show you the thing that this does, which I've always assumed that it's helpful, but never to this extent. So I want to show you here first. I have never once cleaned this coil, and it's still quite clean. And about the only dirty stuff is some leaves build. I have a constant battle with leaves here, as you probably already can tell. So some leaves build up back here. But as far as the coil surface, also, even though it's right against the wall, let me see if I can... I don't know how well you'll be able to see there, but the coil is not that dirty at all. And let me show you why that is. All right, so I've just turned it on to heating mode, and that is a bit of a difference here. I normally use this on heating mode. I actually rarely use this for cooling, because this is conditioning the garage. And I will be honest, I installed this hoping that it would work as a dehumidifier, but I oversized it because it's also a heat pump, and I thought that would be useful in the winter. And because I oversized it, it just does not work for cooling. Its lowest output, it just cools way too much. And yeah, so anyway, it's ramping up the compressor because I just told it I want you to go into heating mode right now. It's blowing cold air at me. I'm actually happy it's running in heating mode because it's actually kind of warm out here. Anyway, you know I ramble. Sorry about that. What I want to show you is what it does when you turn it off. And so I'm going to let it run for a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it off. Okay? Cool. Actually, let me continue the thread that I was on. So I got this hoping that I could like maybe set the temperature in the garage to like 80 degrees in the summer, because we battle humidity like crazy out here in the Midwest. And the first year I had this place, I stored some leather seats from my mom and dad's old minivan in the garage, and they got covered in mold. So I was like, I need something to battle the humidity. And when I learned how simple these things are to install, I thought, perfect, I can get full climate control. But the load in the summer is just so low, and this thing is so oversized, that if I run it in the dry mode, it gets down to like 45 degrees in the garage. And I'm not kidding. Its smallest output is maybe, I don't know, 4,000 BTUs per hour. And that's just too much for the garage because everything is very well shaded, it's well insulated. So I now use a dehumidifier out there, which is what I should have just done. So I have a small dehumidifier that runs throughout the summer, and this mainly gets used in the winter. and I mainly leave it on freeze protection mode. So the garage is mostly just keeping things from freezing, and when the weather is mild and I want to do work out there, I will actually turn it into full heat mode, which is what it's doing right now. So this is a reversible heat pump, of course. Right now the outside is the evaporator, so it's blowing cold air at me, and inside the condenser is blowing hot air and warming things up. But now I'm gonna go and I set it to 76. I'm just gonna turn it off and watch what happens. Okay, so it just killed the compressor. It's still running the fan. I hope the wind, oh gosh, I hope it's not blowing into the mics. Okay, so notice the fan is slowing down because it just turned off the fan. But now it's spinning in the other direction. Every time this guy is turned off, and I assume it's doing this in other situations as well, it runs the condenser fan at full speed backwards to actually suck air in the front of the cowl and blow stuff off of the coil. And this appears to be so incredibly effective that I'm looking at the coil thinking I should probably at least give it a rinse, and I could probably still use that. But the air conditioner was just covered in organic material, detritus, little stringy bits and pollen and all sorts of junk. And this guy, even though it's about the same age, the coil is practically clean. And I imagine a lot of it is down to this behavior, because anything that builds up on the coil, it can largely just push away. And it does this when you turn it off in cooling mode, when you turn it off in heating mode. And as I was saying, I imagine it does this periodically. There's probably a timer whenever it's in an idle operation. So that's a really cool thing. And now I just heard a click, it's probably fully powered off. That's a really cool thing that this mini split does. And I imagine most mini splits do. So when you get back to this dumb American style air conditioner, well, that's just an AC condenser fan powered directly from the contactor. So it's only ever going to be pulling air up, and thus everything just collects on this coil, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and you have to clean it off. And so it does make me wonder, if it could reverse the direction of this fan, how necessary would that be? Because despite, like here, let me show you. If you can tell, this is covered in gunk and debris, and a lot of that is because this is on the north side, and just it's on a part where there's an overhang, there's no gutter above it, everything just gets gross and dirty. And despite how dirty the exterior is, the coil is still practically, I mean, there's hardly anything on it. You can see right through it, you can see the refrigerant pipes, and I've never once properly cleaned this. It's just really interesting. And I used to say, I still kind of think that this form factor is foreign enough for Europeans, that, not for Europeans, for Americans, that they might view this as kind of weird. But I don't know if the barrel style condensing unit can actually benefit. Like, if it ran that fan in reverse, how well could it blow out whatever's stuck on the coils? Whereas this thing, I don't know. I mean, I would have thought that this part of the coil here, which is basically, right next to the fan cowl, really wouldn't get much airflow, but it's still staying cold, or clean. Now, again, the big caveat is I really hardly use this in the summer. And in the winter, the air doesn't have as much crap in it. There's not all that pollen. There's not as much dust. But I do use it in the summer sometimes, and it's been, it's in near constant use in the winter, at least periodically. So that's just really interesting, and I thought I would share that. I really do think the ability to spin the condenser, well, it's hard to call it a condenser fan because it's a heat pump, but to spin that fan backwards does a really good job of keeping the coils clean, even though not even though, just that's a really cool feature. So when I was talking about, the electronics in here are definitely more complex than just a single contactor in that thing. Um, there's another benefit. It seems like it's staying cleaner than it would otherwise. And maybe if those of you that use these mainly as air conditioning, maybe you can tell me they get filthy just as fast, but I'm really blown away after I had seen how dirty the coil was in that thing. With it almost doesn't seem like it needs cleaning at all. A rinse would certainly take care of everything. And again, going back to, it's a heat pump. In the winter, the coil is getting wet. So some of this, maybe this is all just me rambling on. There's no truth to this at all because it is effectively rinsing itself all the time. But I'm still really surprised at how not dirty at all this thing is, given it's been out here for 4 years on the dirty side with all, all the mold and moss and stuff building up on it, and it's still just like clean as a whistle. It's really surprising to me. So, and maybe that's just because it is a heat pump, and maybe if this thing weren't, just so pointlessly simple when it had a reversing valve and it did get wet in the winter, maybe it would stay cleaner, but I honestly doubt it. I think that this behavior of the fan blowing out the coil periodically and every time you turn it off is really, really helping things. And then just, if you've never seen any content regarding mini splits, the other thing is this outdoor unit is really the brains of the operation. And that black wire there, which is definitely not attached correctly because the grommet keeps popping out, that sends, it goes in with the line set, and it's both communication and power for the indoor unit. So you only need to run power to the outdoor unit. It simplifies things a lot. So that was, this is all work that I did. And then you just run that cord into the inside. So really the inside is like the user interface, and that's what the remote talks to. But it's this outside unit that is where all the electronics are, or at least most of them. And yeah, it's still kicking. Ultra high efficiency. Sorry, Pioneer, it's not. This is also, there's a company called Midea. They are the actual OEM for this machine. There's a lot of suspiciously similar heat pumps with different brands on them. It's largely the same OEM that's making these. So it's not ultra high efficiency, it's decent. There are some, because this is 19 SEER for cooling, and the COP in heating mode is like, it can get a little bit better than 3, but that's about it. But there are some small heat pumps now that the SEER in the cooling is like almost 30. It's amazing. They're getting really, really efficient, and their COPs, I was just looking at one that it actually has a COP of almost 10 when it's, it's very rare that it can attain that, but it'll get a COP of 4 or 5 throughout a lot of the winter. So these things are getting really, really efficient. And again, the American manufacturers have a lot to learn from what the Asian manufacturers have been doing with these things. And yes, ducted systems versus ductless systems, there's a lot of nuances there, but I just wanted to make this what was supposed to be a quick video. Of course it's not, because I'm me, on the reversing behavior of the fan, and I think that that is really, really clever, and I think it's keeping the coil a lot cleaner. Let me just also, you can get a sense if you look at, like, that's how dirty it's getting inside there. This thing is not perfectly clean, but the coil is super clean. It's amazing. Anyway, I will actually stop now. Bye.